and he created the human race, and they turned out to be such a voiceless bunch of people, and they had to have a flood drown out most of them to give the race a new start. And then this new bunch of people went to pot, and finally had to send his only son down to be crucified to save these people. And that's what they call the Christian scheme of salvation. Now the Africans had a religion which was much better. In ancient Egypt, if you will see a copy of my new book called Christianity Before Christ, and there's a long section in there on the mysteries of Egypt. Those are the religious rites of the ancient Egyptians. And you will find out that these people, in other words, there are two types of religion in the world. Supernatural religions or theistic religions, and then you have natural religions or atheistic religions. A lot of people have an idea that if a man is an atheist, that is, if he doesn't believe in a personal God, he's an irreligious person. That's not true. The Africans had an atheistic type of religion, and they were a deeply religious people because they believed in that man not only has a body, but he also has a mind, soul, or spirit. And they took the position, for instance, if you went to a temple in ancient Egypt and told the priest that you wanted Horus, the Egyptian Christ, to save your soul, he would tell you not to waste his time. That Horus, Osiris, Isis, or nobody else is going to save your soul except you. In other words, they tell you this. They say, we believe in reincarnation. You have lived before. You've come back to the world. And if you want a better life, the next time you come back, you'll have to earn it yourself. The gods are not going to give it to you. And the Egyptians told these people, if you want a better life the next time you come back to the earth, you live a good life now, and then when you come back, you'll have a better life. But if you lead an evil life, the next time you come back, it'll be worse. So it's up to you. Yeah, so that they told people not to pray to gods or angels or anything to save them. It was their job to save themselves. And I think that's a better religion than asking some dead Jew to save you. Now, these people, they believed in spiritualism and they believed in theosophy. And the whole world, all the religions of the world can be traced back to this African source. And Christians say their religion is true, but paganism is false. And as I've told some preachers, Christianity was stolen from the pagans. So if paganism is false, so is Christianity. Now, you say to yourself, well, when the African, a member of anyone who believes in the African traditional religion, he tells you that he believes in God. But he doesn't believe in the type of God that the white folks believe in. The white folks believe that God is an oversized white man sitting on a throne somewhere up in a place called heaven. The African traditional religion teaches you that there's a large number of gods. You have tree gods, sun gods, moon gods, earth gods, star gods, and all like that. And since a group of colleges make up a university, then a group of the little gods make up the big God. So you take all the little gods and merge them together, and you get the great God, which is the universe itself. It never started, it never was created, and it'll never have an end. And so therefore they said that the great God is nature itself, the universe, and they believed in a doctrine of the Trinity. God is the physical universe. Christ is the mental universe. and matter and mind interact and produce life. So you get a trinity of matter, life, and mind. And that's it. And to show you how we have been badly miseducated and misled, one of my friends is a great black scholar, Professor Yosef Ben Yochanan of Cornell University. Some of you probably met Dr. Ben. Ben went into the Metropolitan Museum in New York, where they have a very fine Egyptian collection. And the young lady is sitting at the desk. Sir, what can I do for you? Dr. Ben says, I would like to visit the African collection. The young lady says, sir, we do not have an African collection. And Dr. Ben says, I meant to say the Egyptian collection. Oh, yes, we have an Egyptian collection. But you know the ancient Egyptians were not white people. Now, the ancient Egyptians, yes, we have an Egyptian collection, but the ancient Egyptians were not Africans. So Ben pulls a map out of his pocket, shoves it right in this girl's face. Young lady, here's a map of Africa, and there's Egypt. Wouldn't you say that Egypt was in Africa? She said, I could say so. Ben says, do you say so? She said, no. Ben says, young lady, you are a jackass. The young lady became hysterical. She hollered for the manager. The manager came out and running and says, what's the trouble? Mr. Manager, this man just called me a jackass. So the manager says, what's the problem? Ben told her the story that he was looking for the Egyptian collection, and this young lady said that the Egyptians were not Africans. And he says, I have a map here, and here's Egypt, and Egypt is a part of Africa. Wouldn't you say so? The man says, well, you could say so. Do you? No. Ben says, you also a jackass. So he said then he ducked out and got out of the vicinity because he was afraid they're going to call the police and put him in the jug for disorderly conduct. So this is the way we have been miseducated. Now, since Egypt was a great African culture, we find out that a few years ago there were no black Egyptologists. We did have one recently, but he died at an untimely age, and that was Dr. Diop of Senegal. I visited him over in Africa and talked with him back in 1977, and Diop, besides being an Egyptologist, he was a lot of other things besides. So then we have a young lady who is an authority on Egyptology. She's now working for the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago and doing research in New York as Mrs. Deidre Wimby. You might have heard of her. She's a young lady that is going to be the first black woman Egyptologist. Now, there was a brilliant scholar at Howard University a few years ago, Professor William Leo Hansberry. He graduated from Howard. He went to Harvard University and was planning to work for a PhD in Egyptology under Professor George Reisner. He was one of the outstanding Egyptologists in this country. And Reisner got up before the class and says, of course you know that the ancient Egyptians were white people. And after he got through, Hansberry put up his hand. Well, Mr. Hansberry, what's your question? He says, I want to challenge that statement you made about the ancient Egyptians being white people. He says, I've read Herodotus' history of Egypt, and he says the ancient Egyptians had black complexions and curly hair. He says, well, Mr. Hansberry, I don't accept Herodotus as an authority. So Hansberry tackled him. He says, listen, Professor, Herodotus visited Egypt in the 5th century BC, and he saw these people. You didn't visit them, and you didn't see them. So Hansberry had him kicked out of his class. So here he was trying